All right, everybody, we have reached number 2 on our top 10 beginner corals list. This one might confuse you guys a little bit because most of you probably thought it was going to be number 1, but it is a mainstay in the hobby. It's one of the easiest corals out there, and most people's first coral. It is the awesome Green Star Polyp. You can control this coral if you need to by putting it on an island in the sand bed. Looks really cool if you glue it to your overflow boxes. Just keep in mind, if you put this one on your rock work, you will have a tank full of Green Star Polyps. We wanted to keep you guys guessing at number 1 was gonna be, so tune in next week to find out what number 1 is going to be. Here's Eli with some more information.
Thank you as always for the intro, Ernie, and as he just mentioned, number 2 on our top 10 corals list is the Green Star Polyp, or GSP as we call it so often in the shop. GSP is definitely one of the first corals that most of our beginner aquarists start with. Very hardy coral that also has a lot going for it in terms of color, in terms of movement in the tank, and is a very steady grower under almost any conditions. So we like to give this to a lot of our beginner aquarists. GSP, as the name suggests, is usually a variant of green in color. Sometimes it's closer to yellow. This is a nice bright yellow strain that Ernie has kept alive for quite a while that we do tend to carry at the shop. And a lot of the GSP that you actually see in our shop is grown at our farm right down the road. As Ernie mentioned, it is a very fast growing coral. So under almost any condition, this coral is going to thrive and grow pretty quickly. One thing to keep in mind with this coral is it can encroach very quickly on top of other corals. And it also does have a potent sting and does win the stinging match fairly often if it does end up touching other corals. So it is important to keep this in mind with placement. A lot of people like to keep it to its own rock like you see here and just place that rock in the sand bed. And then as it grows outward, you can basically frag it with a pair of scissors as it grows off of the rock. Or some people like to keep it on the back of their glass or on their overflow boxes, which is also quite a cool appearance. You get a neat carpeted look to the back of the tank. However, you do have to keep in mind that this coral is still going to need some trimming, especially if it's placed on the overflow box, as you have to be careful of it clogging your overflow and risking flooding your tank on the floor. So if you do place it on the overflow box, if you do place it on the back glass, the easiest way to keep it in check is with a straight razor blade and just being able to kind of scrape it right off the glass in small little sheets, and it usually comes up pretty easily once you start. There are kind of a few color variants that you might see in the hobby, but they are generally all pretty similar, with some of the yellow ones like this one being a little brighter than some of your others. But generally all the polyps look very similar. They're all very long and stringy and nice and flowy. There are also kind of a couple growth forms that you run into, a couple different genuses of the Green Star Polyps, but the polyps look very similar. However, there are some that kind of branch as they grow, with these branches resembling almost a gorgonian, if you're able to see the base of them, and some that kind of just grow in sheets, which are a little more common to come across in the hobby. Care for both of these types is almost identical, and growth rates for them is going to be similar as well. Green Star Polyps will always be a mainstay in the hobby, always a very rewarding, quick growing, and beautiful coral to add to almost any aquarium. Definitely a beginner friendly coral. Thank you guys for watching as always, and tune in next week for number 1 on our top 10 beginner corals list, and keep on reefing.